Beskar steel, also known as Mandalorian iron, is said to be the hardest metal in the entire galaxy. This extraordinary metal is used to forge armor and weapons. Armor infused with a certain percentage of Beskar can withstand blaster fire and even direct hits from energy weapons. Pure Beskar is so strong that it can even resist strikes from the legendary Darksaber. Within the Children of the Watch, only their legendary armorer possesses the skill to forge Beskar steel. Today marks the coming-of-age ceremony for a young member of the tribe. Once a Mandalorian puts on their helmet, they must never remove it again. As the ritual was underway, a massive crocodile-like beast surged out of the water, swallowing a Mandalorian whole. The Mandalorians immediately retaliated with their weapons, but their shots merely bounced off the creature's thick hide as if they were nothing more than a mild irritation. Realizing ranged attacks were ineffective, several Mandalorians took to the air, landing on the beast's back and planting explosives. Yet the monster's back was covered in impenetrable armor, and the blasts barely left a mark. In retaliation, the creature swung its powerful tail, sending the airborne warriors flying. Determined to restrain the beast, the Mandalorians fired their grappling cables into its body, attempting to hold it in place. However, the creature executed a violent death roll, flinging them all away. A woman pulled an injured Mandalorian from the water, but in doing so, she was knocked down by the beast herself. The young Mandalorian who had just taken his oath rushed to help her, only to find himself in the crosshairs of the monster's glare as it charged toward them. At the last second, the tribe's leader shoved the armorer aside and unleashed a relentless barrage from a Gatling gun. Just as he was about to be swallowed whole, a missile shot down from the sky, blasting the creature into submission. A ship maneuvered overhead, locked onto the beast's vulnerable underbelly, and fired another missile, eliminating the monstrous threat for good. As the ship landed, the pilot emerged, none other than Djarin, accompanied by Baby Yoda. Though he had just saved his tribe, the armorer showed no sign of gratitude. Djarin had once removed his helmet, revealing his face, a violation of their ancient code. For this, the armorer had exiled him from the tribe. But this time, Djarin had brought proof, a sacred Mandalorian tablet. According to ancient tradition, if he could journey to Mandalore, find the sacred mines, and bathe in the living waters, he could earn redemption and be welcomed back into the tribe. And so, he set off with Baby Yoda on a quest to reclaim his honor. As their ship traveled through hyperspace, Baby Yoda noticed strange, mysterious creatures lurking in the void. Terrified, he quickly scurried into Djarin's arms for safety. Their next stop was Nevarro, a bustling trade hub. The once lawless world had transformed significantly since their last visit. Now, beings of various species gathered for commerce and trade. In the heart of the city, they found a statue of an old friend, the droid IG-11. The droid had sacrificed itself in the past to protect Baby Yoda. Greef Karga, now the planet's magistrate, welcomed them warmly. He hoped that Djarin and Baby Yoda would settle down and live peacefully on Nevarro. However, Karga soon encountered trouble. A group of enforcers from the Pirate King attempted to break into a school. When Karga tried to reason with them, they refused to back down, prompting him to draw his blaster and take them out in a quick duel. As the remaining pirates prepared to gang up on him, Djarin intervened, swiftly eliminating them with precise shots, leaving only one survivor. Karga then offered Djarin the position of the city's marshal, but Djarin declined. His priority was to return to Mandalore and reclaim his place in the tribe. Instead, he asked for a favor. He wanted IG-11 back. Karga explained that the statue was merely a reconstruction of the droid's salvaged remains. He had plenty of other droids available, but Djarin was adamant. He dismantled the statue and attempted to revive IG-11 himself. At first, the droid powered back on, but something was wrong. To everyone's horror, IG-11 had reverted to its original programming, intent on eliminating Baby Yoda to claim its old bounty. It lunged toward Baby Yoda, relentless in its pursuit. Karga's service droids quickly toppled a metal statue onto IG-11, crushing it once more into scrap. Determined to restore IG-11, Karga led them to the Anzellans, skilled droidsmiths. After examining IG-11's remains, the Anzellans declared that his memory circuit was beyond repair. Even if they rebuilt him, he would no longer be the same, unless they could find a replacement for his discontinued memory module. As the Anzellans worked, Baby Yoda picked one of them up, cuddling him like a toy. The tiny mechanic flailed and protested loudly, insisting, "I'm not a pet!" With that, Djarin entrusted IG-11's remains to Karga and set off to find the missing part. As soon as they left Nevarro, They were ambushed by the Pirate King's enforcers, seeking revenge, but they had chosen the wrong opponent. Djarin expertly piloted his ship through an asteroid field, evading their pursuit before turning the tables. One by one, he took them down with precision shooting. Just as victory seemed certain, a massive warship emerged from the darkness, the flagship of Pirate King Gorian Shard. The pirate leader demanded Djarin surrender his ship and his life, but Djarin had no intention of complying. He used the moment to teach Baby Yoda a lesson about survival in the galaxy. Then, without hesitation, he activated his ship's hyperdrive, disappearing into the stars before the pirates could react. Their journey brought them to Kalevala, a world within the Mandalore system. There, Djarin sought out Bo-Katan Kryze, the leader of the new Mandalorians. However, she was a shadow of her former self, disillusioned and defeated. With the loss of the Darksaber, her once loyal followers had abandoned her, leaving her throne empty. Bo-Katan Kryze sat alone in her empty castle. She had once dreamed of restoring Mandalore's warrior spirit, but after losing the Darksaber, she joined the extremist Death Watch in pursuit of power. Djarin explained his intent to travel to Mandalore's mines and bathe in the living waters, to seek redemption for his past transgressions. But Bo-Katan scoffed at the idea, calling him a fool. She dismissed the sacred mines as nothing more than superstition passed down by their ancestors. Still, she revealed that the mines were located beneath the ruins of Sundari's civic center. With the information he needed, Djarin bid farewell to Bo-Katan and set off for Mandalore, taking Baby Yoda along on his journey. Before heading to Mandalore, Djarin and Baby Yoda made a stop at a bustling trading outpost where they sought out the mechanic Pelimato. The moment he stepped away, a group of Jawas emerged, carrying missing ship components they had conveniently acquired earlier. This was Peli's little business scheme. Just like mechanics who scatter nails on the road to drum up business, her Jawas conveniently found the parts people needed. She even instructed them to repaint the stolen components to make them look different before selling them back. When Djarin arrived, he asked Peli to help him find a memory circuit for IG-11, but Peli informed him that the part had long been discontinued, and even asking Jawas from other systems had yielded no results. Upon hearing that Djarin needed a scouting droid to explore Mandalore's mines, Peli offered him her own assistant, R5-D4. The little astromech droid panicked at the thought of exploring toxic ruins and shook its dome frantically in refusal. To convince R5, Peli painted a grand picture of adventure, telling him that a great droid should be piloting starfighters across the galaxy. Then she turned to Djarin and assured him that R5 would be securely installed in his ship and would serve as an excellent co-pilot. When R5 still refused, Peli resorted to threats, saying she'd sell him to the Jawas instead. Cornered, the little droid had no choice but to comply. As their ship approached the massive planet, Djarin spoke to Baby Yoda about Mandalorian history. This was his first time setting foot on Mandalore itself. He had grown up on the neighboring moon of Concordia. As they pierced through the thick, stormy atmosphere, they found themselves above a desolate and ruined world. The nuclear bombardments from the war had disrupted the planet's magnetic field, cutting off any communication with the outside. After landing, Djarin sent R5 into the ruins to collect air samples, checking whether the atmosphere was breathable. The hesitant little droid crept forward, nervously looking back with every step. Djarin reassured him, "It's just a quick scan, no danger." But before he could finish his sentence, R5 disappeared from the radar. With no other choice, Djarin ventured into the ruins to investigate. He hadn't gone far when he was ambushed by a group of massive, brutish creatures. His blaster was knocked from his hands, leaving him with only one option. He drew the Darksaber, the weapon he had claimed from Moff Gideon, but he still hadn't mastered its use. The blade felt unbearably heavy in his hands, making each swing a struggle. Despite this, the Darksaber's razor-sharp edge easily sliced through the creature's weapons. With great effort, Djarin managed to defeat them one by one. After retrieving R5, he checked the droid's analysis. The toxins in the atmosphere had dissipated. Mandalore was once again safe to breathe. Djarin and Baby Yoda made their way to the ruins of the Civic Center. Following Bo-Katan's directions, they descended into the dark depths of the mines. Amid the dust and debris, Djarin spotted a damaged Mandalorian helmet lying on the ground. As he picked it up, a hidden trap was triggered. A massive mechanical beast sprang to life, capturing Djarin inside its cage-like body. Baby Yoda clung to the metal beast in desperation, trying to follow his captured guardian. A grotesque, insect-like alien emerged from the mechanical body, seizing Djarin's weapons and tossing them aside. Baby Yoda crept closer, reaching out with the Force in an attempt to free his protector. But his powers were not yet strong enough. Instead, he made a noise, alerting the mechanical creature to his presence. Realizing the danger, Djarin shouted, "Go! Find Bo-Katan!" Baby Yoda bolted out of the ruins, but his escape was blocked by another massive creature. Desperate to save Djarin, he unleashed a surge of power, sending the brute flying. He then hurried back to the ship, climbed into the cockpit, and, with R5's help, piloted the ship to Bo-Katan's stronghold. When Bo-Katan saw that only Baby Yoda had returned, she knew something was wrong. She had her droids analyze R5's data to track Djarin's last known location. Without hesitation, she launched her own ship and set a course for Mandalore. Following Baby Yoda's lead, Bo-Katan ventured deep into the ruins. Suddenly, she stopped. She shoved Baby Yoda aside and raised her blaster, firing into the shadows above. A group of ambushers had been waiting for them. Bo-Katan swiftly eliminated them with precision, barely breaking a sweat. Noticing Baby Yoda's wide-eyed amazement, she smirked. "Did you really think your dad was the only Mandalorian?" She explained that the creatures were Alamites, once a primitive species that lived in Mandalore's wastelands. It was strange. How had they survived the devastation of the planet's nuclear bombardment? Meanwhile, Djarin was trapped, his blood being drained by the mechanical entity. Just as things grew dire, Bo-Katan arrived. But the machine's energy weapon was powerful. Bo-Katan was knocked to the ground before she could strike. Struggling to her feet, she spotted Djarin's discarded darksaber nearby. She grabbed it with her grappling cable. Unlike Djarin, she wielded it effortlessly, as though it were an extension of herself. With swift and deadly precision, she cut the mechanical creature down. But just as she freed Djarin, the creature's head detached and scuttled away, retreating into the larger mechanical shell. Djarin gave a quick signal. Bo-Katan understood immediately. She dodged the monster's counterattack, ready for the next round of battle. With a shimmering energy shield in one hand and the darksaber in the other, Bo-Katan launched into battle against the terrifying mechanical creature. Using swift and precise movements, she targeted its legs, slicing them off one by one. The now immobilized monstrosity stood no chance. Bo-Katan delivered the final blow, cleaving it in half with the darksaber. Djarin and Bo-Katan prepared to leave, but Djarin refused to go just yet. He insisted that he could only be redeemed and returned to his tribe after bathing in the living waters of Mandalore. Bo-Katan scoffed at his belief, dismissing the waters as nothing more than a fabricated myth used by past rulers to control Mandalorians. But Djarin was unwavering. He believed that Mandalorians needed faith. It was what defined them as a people. Moved by his conviction, Bo-Katan agreed to lead him to the living waters. She had visited the sacred site once as a child, guided by her father. Descending into an ancient mine, the two warriors ventured deeper into the darkness. At the lowest point of the cave, they came upon a quiet, still pool. A stone plaque stood at its edge. Bo-Katan introduced the site to Djarin, explaining that these mines were said to date back to the very first Mandalorians. According to legend, the cave was once home to a great Mythosaur, a mighty beast tamed by Mandalore the Great, the first ruler of their people. She chuckled, dismissing it as nothing more than an old fairy tale. Djarin, however, remained silent, stepping forward with solemn reverence. He slowly made his way down the stone steps, entering the waters of Mandalore. Then, without warning, something yanked him beneath the surface. Seeing Djarin disappear, Bo-Katan immediately put on her helmet and dove in after him. The water was pitch black, visibility nearly non-existent. But deep within the darkness, she spotted Djarin's unconscious form. She grabbed hold of him and began swimming toward the surface. Then, out of the shadows, something massive stirred. A single, colossal eye opened, gazing at her. It was the Mythosaur, alive. Bo-Katan's heart pounded as she dragged Djarin out of the water. She looked back in shock. Could the ancient Mandalorian legend actually be true? Having completed his sacred cleansing, Djarin collected a vial of the living waters. Oddly enough, he had not seen the beast that Bo-Katan had witnessed. She remained silent, troubled by what she had just experienced. As the three of them departed for Kalevala, they were suddenly ambushed by a squadron of Imperial TIE interceptors. With Djarin's N-1 starfighter left behind at Bo-Katan's castle, he was forced to man the gun turrets on her ship. During the dogfight, Bo-Katan revealed that her ship had been stolen from an Imperial base. Perhaps that was why they were being hunted. Djarin fired relentlessly at their pursuers, but the TIE interceptors were incredibly agile. Despite his efforts, they had only managed to destroy 2 before reaching the castle. Realizing that they were outgunned, Djarin made a bold decision. He jumped from the ship while it was still in motion. Baby Yoda, sensing the impending battle, quickly hid inside his hover pod. Plummeting from thousands of feet in the air, Djarin activated his jetpack just before hitting the ground, making a perfect landing on the castle's platform. With enemy fire raining down, he sprinted to his N-1 starfighter, launching it straight into the sky. He climbed higher and higher until reaching the upper edge of the planet's gravity well. Then, in a sudden maneuver, he cut the engines and let gravity pull him straight back down. The moment he regained control, he fired upon the interceptors below, taking them by surprise. Bo-Katan, using her knowledge of the terrain, weaved through the cliffs with ease, keeping their pursuers at bay. Even so, the Imperial forces refused to let up. Just as it seemed the fight would never end, Djarin rejoined the battle. The 2 Mandalorians coordinated a strategy, setting up a deadly crossfire. One by one, the enemy fighters were destroyed. Bo-Katan personally eliminated the last one. Suddenly, the radar detected several approaching bombers. In the distance, Bo-Katan's castle was already under attack. By the time they arrived, it was too late. The fortress had been reduced to rubble. Bo-Katan, consumed by fury, chased after the bombers, launching a missile and taking one down. Then, her radar began flashing. A massive fleet of enemy fighters was closing in. Djarin, realizing they were hopelessly outnumbered, urged her to retreat. Bo-Katan hesitated. Why did a mere Imperial warlord have such an overwhelming force? Djarin transmitted a set of coordinates to her. Understanding the situation, the 2 of them executed evasive maneuvers and escaped. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, the war was over. The Rebel Alliance had transitioned into the New Republic, with Coruscant serving as its temporary capital. Dr. Pershing, once Moff Gideon's chief scientist, had now joined the New Republic's amnesty program. His cloning research had long been deemed unethical. Moff Gideon had used it as a tool for his own ambitions. But for Pershing, cloning was personal. His mother had died from heart disease. If cloning technology had been available, he might have been able to save her. Pershing's speech on the subject earned him recognition among New Republic scientists. Yet, the admiration he received was superficial. At night, he returned alone to the Amnesty housing complex. The facility housed former Imperial officers who had cooperated with the New Republic in exchange for reduced sentences. Among them was Elia Kane, once a high-ranking officer aboard Moff Gideon's fleet. That night, the former Imperials gathered, toasting to their new lives. "The past is behind us," someone said. "From now on, we're all colleagues." Pershing's cloning research had once been on the verge of a breakthrough. But after Gideon's downfall, the New Republic had seemingly abandoned the project, relegating him to mundane research work. As he grew closer to Kane, he confided in her about his frustrations. Kane, sensing his inner turmoil, subtly hinted that she might be able to help him continue his work. Dr. Pershing knew of a place, a hidden location, where a portable lab lay unused. After wrestling with his conscience through the night, he finally made up his mind. Under the cover of darkness, he and Kane snuck onto the city's transport train. To avoid the security droids patrolling for unauthorized passengers, they kept moving toward the back of the train, dodging inspections at every stop. As the droids closed in, they had no choice but to leap from the speeding train. Fortunately, they landed not far from their destination. The 2 of them trekked on foot to an abandoned Imperial lab. Inside, they located the portable lab equipment and packed it up, preparing to leave. But before they could make their escape, patrolling New Republic officers surrounded them. And standing on the other side was Kane. It was then that Pershing realized he had been betrayed. The New Republic had deemed Pershing's Imperial ties too deep. They believed he could only be trusted if his past memories were erased. Kane had been part of their plan all along, leading him straight into their trap. But Kane's true allegiance remained a mystery. Was she truly with the New Republic, or was her heart still loyal to the old empire? Alone in the lab, she watched as the mind-wiping machine powered up. Then, without hesitation, she cranked the device to its highest setting. Her intentions were clear. Pershing wasn't just going to forget his past. She planned to make sure he never woke up again. Meanwhile, under Djarin's guidance, Bo-Katan arrived at the secret refuge of the Mandalorian tribe. Their presence was met with hostility. The Mandalorians saw them as oathbreakers, people who had forsaken their ancestors' sacred traditions. But Djarin had come prepared. He presented the vial of living waters he had collected from Mandalore's mines. The tribe's leader conducted a test, verifying its authenticity. With the proof in hand, Djarin was officially granted redemption. He was once again a Mandalorian. But Bo-Katan had also entered the sacred waters to save him, and since then, she had never removed her helmet. By the tribe's laws, she too had been redeemed. As long as she kept her helmet on, she was welcome to stay among them. Their return was interrupted by a sudden attack. A massive flying dragon swooped down, snatching a young Mandalorian and carrying him away. Djarin and several warriors ignited their jetpacks and pursued the beast. But the dragon flew deeper into the canyon, far beyond their fuel limits. With their thrusters running dry, they had no choice but to land. The tribe revealed that this was not the first time the dragon had attacked, yet they had never been able to stop it. As they stood in frustration, Bo-Katan's ship roared overhead, chasing after the dragon. A short while later, she returned with critical information. The beast's nest was located atop a towering mountain peak. To ensure the child's safety, they could not use heavy weapons or explosives. They would have to scale the mountain and launch a stealth rescue. Back at the tribe's stronghold, the armorer prepared to craft something special for baby Yoda. She melted down Beskar, the legendary Mandalorian metal, known as the strongest material in the galaxy. It could be forged into armor and weapons, capable of withstanding blaster fire and energy blasts. As the forge burned, baby Yoda's mind drifted into memories of his past. He had been born 41 years before the Battle of Yavin, of the same mysterious species as Master Yoda. His species was known for their powerful connection to the Force and incredible longevity. Shortly after birth, he was taken to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, raised within its sacred halls. Though baby Yoda was already 50 years old in his species, he was still just a child. But as the Clone Wars neared their end, darkness fell upon the Jedi Order. The rise of Emperor Palpatine marked the beginning of the Great Purge. The Jedi Temple was overrun, and its warriors were mercilessly hunted down. Many Jedi sacrificed themselves to protect baby Yoda, losing their lives in the process. Ultimately, he managed to escape the slaughter, but to survive, he had to conceal his Force abilities. According to Mandalorian tradition, every member of the tribe contributed a portion of their Beskar to the foundlings. For baby Yoda, the armorer forged a small round plate to be worn on his chest, engraved with the insignia of the Children of the Watch. With this, baby Yoda had officially become part of the Mandalorian clan. Meanwhile, the rescue team had arrived at the base of the mountain. Using their wrist-mounted grappling hooks, the Mandalorians scaled the sheer cliffs. Upon reaching the nest, they found it eerily silent. One of the warriors rushed inside, frantically searching for the child. For him, this was more than just a mission. The kidnapped boy was his son. His movements startled a group of baby dragons who screeched and snapped at him. In an instant, he nearly became their next meal. Their cries summoned the mother dragon. Believing her young were hungry, she regurgitated the Mandalorian boy, intending to feed him to her hatchlings. Seeing that his son was still alive, the warrior flew up to rescue him. But in a cruel twist, the dragon lunged forward, swallowing him whole. At the same time, the child was once again snatched in the creature's talons as it took to the skies. Bo-Katan and the others ignited their jetpacks and launched into pursuit. During the chase, the dragon lashed out with its massive wings, striking Bo-Katan. Her shoulder armor was torn off, and she nearly plummeted into the lake below, but she quickly recovered, closed the distance, and fired a grappling hook directly into the beast's skull. She repeatedly stabbed at its eye, forcing it to release the warrior from its mouth. Djarin and the other Mandalorians then sprang into action, wrapping the dragon's wings with their cables. The battle for survival had only just begun. As the fierce battle continued, Bo-Katan managed to swoop in and rescue the falling child. Meanwhile, the wounded dragon lost control, plunging into the lake below, where a massive alligator-like creature made quick work of its helpless form. The Mandalorians didn't return empty-handed. They brought back 3 dragon hatchlings, hoping to tame them and train them as aerial mounts for future battles. The armorer praised Bo-Katan for her bravery in saving the child. Noticing that her shoulder armor had been damaged in the fight, she offered to forge her a new one. Bo-Katan requested that it bear the insignia of the Mythosaur, the legendary creature she had seen in the living waters. The armorer granted her request, recognizing it as a sign of something greater on the horizon. Meanwhile, on the planet Navarro, the city was under attack. The Pirate King had returned with his fleet, launching a full-scale assault. Greef Karga attempted to threaten them with the power of the New Republic, but the pirate leader scoffed at the idea. A remote planet like Navarro was far beyond the Republic's jurisdiction. With no fear of consequences, he ordered his ships to bombard the city. Buildings collapsed under heavy fire, and civilians ran for cover. Desperate, Karga contacted a New Republic pilot and sent out a distress call. One of the Republic's officers immediately rushed to Coruscant to request military intervention. But then, Amnesty officer Elia Kane entered the conversation. She coldly reminded them that Navarro was not a Republic member. According to protocol, priority had to be given to official member planets. Despite the pilot's persistent pleas, the Republic refused to intervene without authorization. With no other choice, he took matters into his own hands. The pilot located the Mandalorian hideout and sought their help. Djarin was surprised. How had he found their secret base? It turned out that R5, his astromech droid, had secretly transmitted the location. The pilot, having crossed paths with Djarin before, knew that Karga was a friend of his. He informed Djarin about Navarro's dire situation. Djarin understood that taking on the Pirate King alone was impossible, so he rallied the Mandalorians to join him. If they helped Karga reclaim his city, they could secure land for themselves, a permanent home where they would no longer have to live in hiding. At first, many were reluctant, but then, the warrior whose child had been saved by Djarin and Bo-Katan stood up. For the sake of their people's future, he agreed to fight. With his support, the rest of the Mandalorians followed. The Mandalorian fleet arrived above Navarro, launching their attack. Djarin led the charge in his starfighter, firing upon the pirate mothership. In response, the Pirate King deployed all of his fighter craft to take him down. But Djarin's superior piloting skills allowed him to evade their attacks with ease. Meanwhile, Bo-Katan's transport ship descended over the city, deploying Mandalorian warriors directly into the streets. The ground pirates were caught off guard, overwhelmed by the sudden ambush. As Djarin lured the pirate fighters away, Bo-Katan launched an assault on the mothership, destroying 2 of its engines. Seeing his ship under threat, the Pirate King recalled his fighters to defend it. In the city, the Mandalorians faced heavy resistance. The pirates had set up fortified positions, raining down gunfire from above. Even with a Mandalorian heavy gunner providing cover, they were pinned down. Just when it seemed the battle was turning against them, the armorer emerged. Wielding only a hammer and tongs, she struck from behind, eliminating the pirate gunners one by one. With their defenses broken, the remaining pirates panicked. As they attempted to flee the city, Karga's forces encircled them. With no escape, the remaining pirates had no choice but to surrender. In the skies, the battle had reached its peak. Djarin and Bo-Katan coordinated their attacks, methodically eliminating the enemy fighters. One of the pirate pilots, realizing defeat was imminent, abandoned his squadron and fled. Seeing his forces crumbling, the Pirate King made one final, desperate move. He aimed his ship's weapons at the city, intending to destroy as many civilians as possible in a final act of vengeance. Karga's forces had no way to stop the incoming attack. Just as the missile launchers locked onto the city, Djarin and Bo-Katan struck. A direct hit to the last remaining engine sent the Pirate King's warship spiraling out of control. As he let out one final scream of rage, his ship crashed into the ground, erupting into a fiery explosion. With Navarro liberated, Karga welcomed the Mandalorians as allies. As a token of gratitude, he granted them a vast stretch of land, a place where they could finally settle. The Mandalorians had a home once more. After the victory, the Mandalorian heavy gunner approached Bo-Katan. He led her to an ancient, abandoned forge within the city. There, the armorer reminisced about the past glory of Mandalore. Now the Mandalorians were scattered, reduced to little more than mercenaries. But she believed Bo-Katan could change that. She assigned her a mission, to unite the lost Mandalorians and bring them back together. Bo-Katan had seen the Mythosaur with her own eyes. To the armorer, this was a sign. A new age for the Mandalorians was about to begin. Elsewhere, a Republic patrol encountered a drifting, damaged starship. Upon closer inspection, it was the wreckage of a new Republic prison transport. But something was off. Scattered around the wreckage were fragments of Beskar armor. The evidence suggested that the ship had been raided, and the one it had been transporting was Moff Gideon. Had Mandalorians rescued him, or had someone framed them for his escape? Meanwhile, a group of Mandalorian mercenaries had cornered an alien ship. They had been hired for a high-paying job, recovering a kidnapped prince. But this was no ordinary abduction. The prince, a lobster-like alien, had run away out of love for an octopus-like female captain. The Mandalorians, however, had no interest in romance. They forcibly separated the lovers and completed their mission. The leader of these Mandalorians was Axe Woves, once a trusted lieutenant of Bo-Katan. Djarin and Bo-Katan tracked down Axe's mercenary crew to the planet Plazir 15. But the moment they landed, they were greeted with an unexpected surprise. An invitation to a royal banquet. The planet's ruler was a former Imperial officer who had been granted amnesty by the New Republic. After being pardoned, he had come to rule Plazir 15 and had fallen in love with its native queen. During the banquet, the queen charmed Baby Yoda, easily winning his favor with food. She explained that Republic law prohibited planetary rulers from maintaining their own armies. Instead, they had hired Axe's Mandalorian crew as private security. The king agreed to introduce them to Axe, but in exchange, he needed their help with a problem. The planet's droids, once loyal servants, had started malfunctioning. On Plazir 15, local authorities were unable to carry weapons, making it impossible for them to deal with rogue battle droids. They needed someone who could uncover the source of the problem. According to the planetary security captain, many of the droids on the planet were repurposed Imperial battle droids. After being reprogrammed for civilian use, they had served society well, until recently. Despite the presence of built-in fail-safe shutdown codes, a democratic vote had prevented their deactivation. The people had become entirely dependent on the droid's services and refused to shut them down. Djarin sought out the Egnaughts, a species known for their expertise in droid engineering. Through them, he learned the location of the malfunctioning droids. The investigation led them to a bustling cargo port. There, rows of former battle droids had been reassigned as dock workers, hauling heavy crates under the supervision of their handlers. Djarin, unwilling to waste time, took a direct approach. He attacked the droids. If they were properly reprogrammed, they wouldn't retaliate. After testing several droids, he finally found what he was looking for. One of the droids suddenly lashed out, knocking Djarin to the ground before making a run for it. The chase led them through the city, with the rogue droid throwing objects at Djarin as it tried to escape. Eventually, Djarin tackled the droid, and Bo-Katan finished it off with a precise blaster shot. A clue left behind on the droid led them to a droid bar. The bartender revealed that all malfunctioning droids had consumed a special lubricant, similar to a forget-your-troubles tonic for humans. Further analysis by a scientist revealed that the lubricant was contaminated with nanobots. Tracking the purchase records, they discovered that the rogue lubricant had been secretly ordered by none other than the planetary security captain himself. When confronted, the captain initially denied any involvement. But then, he suddenly pressed his hand against a red emergency switch. He declared that if he activated it, every labor droid on the planet would revert to their original programming, turning them into an unstoppable army of war machines. The captain revealed his true allegiance. He was a separatist. As he launched into a grand speech about his ideals, Bo-Katan didn't hesitate. She shot him mid-sentence, ending the threat instantly. With the case solved, Djarin and Bo-Katan bid farewell to the king and queen and finally made their way to the Mandalorian encampment. Upon arrival, Bo-Katan challenged Axe Woves for leadership of the mercenary Mandalorians. The two warriors clashed in an intense duel. In the end, Bo-Katan emerged victorious, but Axe refused to acknowledge her as their leader. She lacked the most important symbol of Mandalorian leadership, the Darksaber. Djarin, the saber's current wielder, was not of Mandalorian blood and could not rightfully claim leadership. As they argued, Djarin stepped forward. He recounted how, during his exploration of Mandalore, he had been captured by a mechanical creature. Bo-Katan had defeated that creature and rescued him, retrieving the Darksaber in the process. By Mandalorian tradition, that meant the blade rightfully belonged to her, with no further argument. Bo-Katan reclaimed the Darksaber, officially becoming the leader of all Mandalorians. Meanwhile, Elia Kane, who had infiltrated the New Republic, contacted Moff Gideon with urgent news. The Pirate King had been defeated on Navarro. And the ones responsible? Bo-Katan, Djarin, and the Mandalorians. Gideon and his fellow Imperial warlords had been secretly growing their power, waiting for the return of their Grand Admiral to reclaim the galaxy. But if the Mandalorians restored their homeworld, they could disrupt their plans for an Imperial resurgence. Gideon requested reinforcements. His goal was simple: wipe out the Mandalorians for good. Bo-Katan led her fleet to reunite with Djarin's Mandalorian faction on Navarro. Although both sides were Mandalorian, their differing beliefs had bred distrust and hostility. As tensions rose, the Armorer intervened, urging them to put aside their differences. A grand feast was held in honor of their alliance. Greef Karga also arrived, bringing Djarin a bottle of fine liquor and a surprise gift. IG-11 had been upgraded to IG-12. Since they had been unable to restore his memory circuits, he had been converted into a piloted exosuit. Baby Yoda immediately climbed inside, eager to take control. Djarin tried to explain that he was too small to operate a combat droid. But Baby Yoda ignored him, repeatedly pressing the no buttons in protest, refusing to leave the suit. That night, Bo-Katan addressed both factions. The time had come to reclaim Mandalore. She would lead a scouting party to locate the Great Forge and secure a foothold on the planet. Once the area was deemed safe, the rest of the Mandalorians would follow and establish their home once more. For the first time, Mandalorians from both sides united. Many warriors, including Djarin, volunteered for the mission. The fleet departed Navarro, setting course for Mandalore. Upon arrival, Bo-Katan led the scout team down to the surface. Due to lingering atmospheric interference, all communication with the fleet was lost. During their exploration, they encountered an ancient, battered ship approaching from the distance. To their surprise, its crew were Mandalorians. These warriors had never abandoned Mandalore. They had survived in hiding all these years. Seeing Bo-Katan return, they pledged their loyalty to her once again. As they continued toward the ruins of the Great Forge, Bo-Katan revealed the truth about how she had lost the Darksaber. When the Empire devastated Mandalore, Gideon had offered a deal: surrender the Darksaber, and he would spare the survivors. Bo-Katan had given up the blade to save her people, only for Gideon to betray her and unleash further destruction. The Armorer's past was also unveiled. She had once been part of Death Watch, but Mandalore had shattered into warring factions, leading to their downfall. Djarin assured Bo-Katan that his loyalty to her was not because of the Darksaber or her bloodline. He followed her because of her honor and leadership. As they neared their destination, disaster struck. A massive creature erupted from the ground, destroying their ship. The Mandalorians barely managed to escape, taking shelter inside the ruins. But then, a new threat appeared. Imperial troops clad in Beskar armor. A fierce battle erupted, but the Mandalorians were outnumbered. One warrior escaped to call for reinforcements, while the others fought to hold their ground. As they pushed forward, they stumbled upon a shocking sight: a fully operational Imperial base hidden beneath Mandalore's ruins. Before they could react, blast doors slammed shut, separating Djarin from the rest. He was surrounded and overpowered. From the shadows, Moff Gideon emerged, clad in an advanced Beskar-powered suit. He declared that the era of Mandalorians was over. Mandalore would be his to rule. He had used the planet's resources to forge a new army, one that combined the strength of Mandalorians and the power of the Jedi. Using Dr. Pershing's cloning technology, Gideon had created a new breed of Imperial soldiers, melding the strength of Mandalorians with the power of the Jedi. With this new army, he planned to bring the galaxy under his rule. As his forces gathered, Gideon ordered a fleet of TIE interceptors and bombers to launch, setting their sights on the Mandalorian fleet waiting in orbit. "The purge of Mandalore," he declared, "will finally be complete." After capturing Djarin, Gideon once again demanded that Bo-Katan surrender the Darksaber and submit to him, but Bo-Katan had learned her lesson. She would never trust his words again. Under heavy fire, she carved an escape route with the Darksaber. One Mandalorian warrior chose to stay behind, providing cover with a heavy blaster as the others retreated. The relentless barrage soon overheated his weapon, leaving him no choice but to engage in brutal hand-to-hand combat against the oncoming Imperial troopers. Just as he defeated the last of them, 3 figures emerged from the smoke, Gideon's personal Praetorian guards. Clad in crimson armor forged from Mandalorian Beskar and wielding deadly energy weapons, they moved with precision and deadly intent. Already exhausted, the lone warrior stood no chance. He fought bravely but was overwhelmed, falling in battle. From outside, Bo-Katan reached Axe Woves, who had managed to escape. She warned him. Gideon's fleet was launching to obliterate the Mandalorian fleet. They couldn't win an aerial battle. Their only hope was to win the fight on the ground. Axe took command of the capital ship and prepared a desperate plan. He would use it as bait, drawing the Imperial fleet's fire while ordering all Mandalorians to land on the planet below. Awakening in captivity, Djarin launched into action. The Imperial guards assigned to him weren't just any soldiers. They were equipped with Mandalorian armor and advanced weapons. After a grueling fight, he managed to take one down, only to be caught in a chokehold by another. Then, at the last second, Baby Yoda arrived, piloting the IG-12 exosuit. With surprising strength, the little warrior saved Djarin from certain death. Meanwhile, waves of Imperial fighters launched from the base, heading for the Mandalorian fleet in orbit. Gideon, enraged by Djarin's escape, decided to eliminate him personally. But Djarin had a plan of his own: take out Gideon at the source. With R5's assistance, he hacked into the base's control systems and charted a path to the command center. One by one, security barriers were disabled, allowing Djarin and Baby Yoda to push forward. Upon entering the command center, they made a shocking discovery: a row of cloning pods, each containing identical copies of Gideon. Realizing the implications, Djarin immediately destroyed the entire facility, erasing Gideon's future army before it could awaken. Axe reached the capital ship just in time, executing Bo-Katan's plan. As the Imperial fleet closed in, the Mandalorians launched from the ship in waves, descending toward the planet's surface. The moment they emerged from the clouds, they engaged Gideon's forces in an all-out battle. Bo-Katan, wielding the Darksaber, led the charge. Stormtroopers in Beskar armor clashed against Mandalorian warriors in an intense aerial battle. Blaster fire lit up the sky as both sides fought for control of the base. Inside the fortress, Djarin finally came face to face with Gideon. The Imperial warlord was livid. His entire army of clones had been destroyed before he could unleash them. Those clones weren't just soldiers. They were engineered to be the perfect warriors, possessing not only his tactical mind but also the ability to wield the Force. And now, because of Djarin, his grand vision was nothing more than ash. Consumed by rage, Gideon attacked. With his new Beskar-powered armor, he overwhelmed Djarin, pummeling him with brutal strength. Just as Gideon was about to land the final blow, he summoned his Praetorian guards to finish the job. At the last moment, Baby Yoda intervened, drawing their attention away from Djarin. The tiny warrior dodged their strikes, using the Force to evade their deadly attacks. But the battle wasn't over yet. Bo-Katan fought her way through the battlefield, finally reaching Djarin. With a powerful strike, she sent Gideon flying and ordered Djarin to save Baby Yoda. This fight was hers. Gideon, unfazed, pulled out his own weapons, ready to battle the rightful ruler of Mandalore. Their fight was fierce, with each strike shaking the ground beneath them, but slowly, Gideon gained the upper hand. With a powerful blow, he shattered the Darksaber, rendering it useless. Grabbing Bo-Katan by the helmet, he sneered, "Without your armor, you Mandalorians are nothing." Before he could deliver the final blow, a blaster shot struck him from behind. It was Djarin. The battle turned into a three-way firefight, with Bo-Katan and Djarin engaging Gideon in a desperate attempt to end his reign once and for all. At that moment, all Mandalorians received a warning. Axe's ship was descending fast. With the Imperial fleet still locked onto him, he had no choice but to crash the entire vessel into the base. The Mandalorians had only seconds to escape. As Gideon fought off Bo-Katan and Djarin, the capital ship came crashing down. In a final moment of desperation, Gideon roared in defiance, before being engulfed in the flames of the explosion. Surrounded by fire, Bo-Katan, Djarin, and Baby Yoda stood at the edge of the wreckage. In the last moment, Baby Yoda extended his hands, using the Force to shield them from the fiery inferno. The battle was over. Mandalore was finally free. Back at the Great Forge, the armorer performed the ritual of rebirth, anointing each Mandalorian foundling with the sacred waters. Djarin formally adopted Baby Yoda, making him an official Mandalorian. Bo-Katan reignited the Great Forge, the heart of Mandalore, signifying the rebirth of their civilization. With Mandalore secured, Djarin sought out Captain Teva. He had rid the Republic of a major Imperial threat, but his work wasn't done yet. Djarin proposed a deal. He would work as an independent contractor, protecting the Outer Rim from Imperial remnants. Meanwhile, Baby Yoda stumbled upon a familiar sight, a broken-down droid head. A few days later, Djarin returned to Navarro with a special gift for Greef Karga. IG-11 had been fully restored. Now he would serve as the Marshal of Navarro, protecting its people. With his mission complete, Djarin left Navarro behind, taking Baby Yoda with him. But this time, he wasn't just raising a child, he was training the next great Mandalorian.